let's introduce the American Club of Rome. I'm Marcel Kamenstein. I'm on the board of directors, past president, and currently on the board, and happy to have been involved for a number of years with the American Club of Rome. We've done some amazing things. American Club of Rome is the nonprofit social club that brings together and promotes the friendly exchange of American traditions in Italy. We are a group of very interesting, diverse Americans and Italians and internationals in Rome. We have tons of events that we put on a regular basis. Even through the pandemic, we've done a number of events that we've done for outreach to U.S. citizens. We've done a lot of outreach from also for the international community. We have a lot of things coming up. The spring-summer, we have a spring-summer aperitivo that's coming up, and this is one of our first in-person events that's going to happen in 2021, and that's going to be a wonderful apericena that is going to happen along the river next Thursday, June 3rd. This is going to be amazing. It's at the Circolo per il Ministro degli Affari Esteri. So if anybody's ever been there, it is absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. Right on the river. It's absolutely beautiful. You can sign up now. The list is extremely limited. We only have about 30 guests that are going to be allowed to come. So this is also going to be subsidized from the American Club of Rome. So it is, if you can get in quickly, the list is limited. I know that already a bunch of these seats have already sold out. So jump on there quickly. Another amazing event, and this is one of the best events that the American Club of Rome does every single year. It is the biggest VIP event, I think, in Rome or in Italy for the July month, and that is the 4th of July celebration, and that is the U.S. Independence Day. So that is going to be on July 3rd, which is a Saturday. It's going to be at the Acquedotto Romano Polo Club. Our wonderful host and board member, Marco Elser, he's going to be hosting that as he does every year. It's the event in Rome, and especially now since there was COVID, it is going to be really particularly interesting. There's going to be a lot of security measures. There's going to be a lot of social distancing as well. It's all outdoor. That's going to start around 4 or 5 p.m. If anybody was there last year, it was amazing. There were fireworks. We had multiple ambassadors coming. And as usual, it's the who's who of Rome to come to that event. So if you can get in there, that is an amazing one. We have some other free in-person events and social events that are going to start, hopefully, to open up the lives of the Italians and the Americans that are living in Italy. Blaine Brown, who is our club manager, who is also on this call. I see her, she's on there. She will be working with some various events that are going to be taking place, walks in the park, book club, trivia event, and there's going to be a lot of other ones. If you subscribe to the American Club of Rome, you'll get the June newsletter. Definitely do this because you'll find out of all the cool stuff that the American Club is putting on for all of our citizens and our club members. So let me introduce now our special guest. We've got an amazing individual today, Marco Permunian,
yes.
Permunian, of the Italian Citizenship Assistance. And so what he's doing is he has a group of about 100 lawyers that he started this entire organization. I had a great chat with him yesterday about it. Marco works with all facets of Italian civil law system. And one of the things that he's especially good at is helping American citizens get Italian citizenship. And so this is important because it's also something very complicated. It's very complex. There's a lot of intricacies, and Marco is going to talk about this now. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pass this over to him so he can give a proper introduction of himself. Then we are going to get into a little bit of a Q&A. We've got a list of questions that were submitted by our various members and individuals who signed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to Marco, and then we're going to switch back to the Q&A. Marco?
Thank you so much. First of all, it's an honor to be here. I also became a member of your club very recently, and I'm very honored. I look forward to being present at your events this summer. I'm an attorney registered in Italy. As you said, we are a big company. We help people with their applications for citizenship by descent. Uh, our clients are primarily American citizens looking to apply for citizenship by descent. We also help people with real estate in Italy. So some of our clients, they are also interested in purchasing properties in Italy, and we help them with that process as well. But our main focus is people who are American citizens and are of Italian descent, people who have an Italian born parent, grandparent, or great grandparent, who are interested in becoming Italian citizens, or actually, I should say, to have their Italian citizenship recognized. And we have a lot of clients from all over the US, and I hope I can be of help for some of your club members as well in the future.
Great. Well, listen, we're so excited that you're part of the club now. We have, surprisingly, we have picked up, and this is something that totally shocked me. We picked up a lot of members over the course of the pandemic. And I think it was because we were really engaged. We were out, we were doing a lot of events, a lot of web events, that we were able to engage with a lot of the potential members that were out there. So we were super happy. We were very happy to have you join us, and we're very happy to be able to put on this webinar today. The first question that came in was, what are the eligibility requirements to apply for Italian citizenship by descent?
Evidently, to be eligible for citizenship by descent, you need to have an Italian-born ancestor. Most people, they have an Italian great-grandparent, but of course, there are different cases. You can have an Italian-born parent, an Italian-born grandparent, or great-great-grandparent. There is no generational limit. So one of the main requirements that needs to be met is the fact that your Italian-born ancestor must have been alive in 1861. So when Italy was unified. Before 1861, there was no Italy as a country. It was just Italy was made up of a number of states. And then in 1861, it was unified as a country. So even if your Italian-born ancestor was no longer residing in Italy, so even if your Italian ancestor had emigrated abroad prior to 1861, as long as he was still alive in 1861, if you meet the other requirements, you can qualify for Italian citizenship by descent. The other requirements would be that one of the main requirements would be that your ancestor in question was not naturalized prior to the birth of the next person in the Italian line born abroad. So if you have an Italian-born great-grandparent, he or she must have not become a US citizen prior to the birth of your grandparent who was born in the US. Additionally, your Italian-born ancestor must have not become a citizen of the US prior to 1912. Otherwise, he would be disqualified. There could be other avenues, but let's say that if your Italian-born ancestor became naturalized before 1912, there are good chances that you don't qualify for citizenship. I got to say that most Americans, they do qualify for Italian citizenship. So interestingly, if you're an American who has an Italian ancestor, it is very likely that you qualify, and that has to do with the history of the immigration from Italy to the US, because Italians from southern Italy were immigrating to the US mostly between the end of the 1800s and the early 1900s. So it's likely that your ancestor was still alive in 1861. And also because it took some time for them to become naturalized in the US, Normally it took like 6-7 years at least after their arrival in the US. And if they couldn't speak English or read English properly, it took even longer. So it's also very likely that your ancestor did not become naturalized prior to the birth of the next person in the Italian line. Now, these are two of the main requirements. Another requirement is that if you have a female in your Italian line, then the child of this female must have not become natural. I'm sorry, the child of this female must have been born after 1948, January 1st, 1948. So for example, if you have an Italian-born great-grandparent who gave birth to your grandmother, if your parent was born before January 1st, 1948, so before the day in which women became able to transfer their citizenship onto their children, then you do not qualify for Italian citizenship by descent. January 1st, 1948 is the day in which the Italian Constitution came into effect. So that's why it's from 1948 that women can pass citizenship onto their children, because the Italian Constitution said that men and women have equal rights. But if you have a female in your Italian ancestor who gave birth to their child before 1948, we can talk about that later, but you can still pursue Italian citizenship, but you have to do it via the court system. We can talk later about the 1948 cases. So these are the main eligibility requirements. There are, of course, unique cases, other requirements, special circumstances, but the vast majority of people will qualify for citizenship if they meet these basic requirements.
Got it. That's interesting. What kind of documents do you need for the application to apply?
So the application process is rather complex because of the huge number of people that are seeking Italian citizenship, especially in the US, because we're talking about a huge number of people that are interested in Italian citizenship. The Italian consulates in the US are making this process more complex for people. They're giving people, so to say, a hard time. So they want all of these documents, which are vital records pertaining to the individuals in your Italian line. They want all of these documents to be in a very specific format, which could be the longest format available. They want these documents to be without any misspellings or inconsistencies between the documents. So if there are discrepancies in the documents, you have to amend them to make sure that all the information on these documents is consistent. For example, if your Italian ancestor maybe changed his name upon arrival in the US, or maybe his name or last name was misspelled on some documents, you will have to take action and correct these documents. So it's a rather complex process, but in a nutshell, the documents that you need are vital record documents, so birth certificates, marriage records, death certificates for all of the individuals in your Italian line, and of course the naturalization records for your Italian-born ancestor to prove when exactly he or she became naturalized, or to prove that your Italian ancestor never became naturalized.
It's incredible, you know, how, and I think some of the younger generations, when they listen to this, I think it's pretty hard for them to grasp how some of these documentations, how they came about and how they exist in their current form and how you find them. I know it's quite complex. We actually had somebody come on a few months ago who was an incredible lady who, she is an American citizen, actually a Canadian citizen, lives in Italy. And one of the things she does is she specifically documents and researches some of these ancestral documents in Italy. And it's fascinating when you start to have these conversations, like with an attorney like yourself, who when you start to see how these documents and these records were originally cataloged through various areas like the Vatican and through the churches and some of these comune, and how the French influence when Italy was controlled by French government, when they brought in some of the document records and how they were in various languages. So it's interesting to hear about this. What about where can we apply? Well, that was another question. Where would you be able to apply to do that?
Before I answer that question, your point was very interesting, and if I may add that a lot of people, they think, I want to apply for Italian citizenship. I know I have Italian great grandparents. It's going to be so complicated. How am I going to be able to find the documents? This is going to be impossible. But a lot of people find that that's not the case. It's actually, the process is complex. The process of, giving the consulate the right documents, but finding the documents, which is what people believe, it's the hardest part, is not as hard as they believe, because it has to do with the emigration from Italy to the US. It happens in the late 1800s. And because of this, all the documents that you need, for a standard case, they do exist and they can easily be found. For example, in Italy, after the unification of Italy, the towns that we have in Italy, they started to keep records really well. So if you're looking for your great grandfather's birth certificate, if your great grandfather was born in 1876, it is very likely that the town hall will have that document. The same applies to the first generations that were born in the U.S., like your grandparents. That were born in the US after your great grandparents emigrated. Their birth certificate, even if they are from from 1910 or 1920, they do exist and they can easily be accessed. So it's kind of surprising to people that these documents are accessible and they can be obtained once you have located them quite easily. I'm sorry for this. I'm going to answer your question. So where can you apply for citizenship? If you reside in the US, you should apply through the Italian consulate in the US. It's going to be a long process if you reside in the US, but still acceptable, because the Italian consulates in the US are pretty backed up. There's a huge interest in applying for citizenship, as I said before. So you're going to have to be prepared to long waits. And by long, I mean months. It could take 12 months, 18 months before you're able to meet with the consulate to present your application. In some cases, 24 months. There's a way to expedite the process. Now, if you live in the US, you have to apply through the consulate that has jurisdiction over the state where you reside. So if you're from Southern California, you have to apply through the Los Angeles consulate. But if you're willing to relocate to Italy for some time, you can apply for citizenship in Italy, and the process can be much quicker. You will have to spend some time in Italy, a couple of months, a few months, and you can reside in Italy while the process moves forward, because you can be granted a residency permit that is given to you because you applied for citizenship. And the process in Italy takes much shorter. Normally it takes about 6 months from when you arrive, and you can travel to Italy with no need to secure any appointments with the municipality in advance. You can just decide to travel, as long as you have an accommodation, like an apartment that you can rent. You can start the application process in the municipality where you're going to establish a residency. And like I said, it's going to be a much quicker process.
That's great. What is the 1948 case?
We talked about that before briefly. When I was saying that if you have a female ancestor in your Italian line who gave birth to their child before 1948, I mentioned before that technically speaking, you don't qualify for Italian citizenship. So if your grandmother was born in the US to Italian parents, but then gave birth to your father in 1947, you can't apply for citizenship by descent. However, since 2009, it's possible to petition the court in Italy and get Italian citizenship through the courts. Now, when you say petition the court, you think about a very daunting and complex and uncertain process, but that's not the case because the legal precedent has already been established. So for those people who have a 1948 case, it's actually an easy process that they can go through. It's kind of a long process. It takes about 1 to 2 years. But if that's your only option to get Italian citizenship, you should pursue it because it's a very safe process and the end result will be the same, meaning you will become an Italian citizen. Your counterpart will be the Ministry of Interior. And basically what you're going to be arguing is that the law that prevented women from transferring citizenship onto their children before 1948 was unconstitutional and discriminatory against women, and therefore should not be applied. And that's how you can get citizenship via the court system. It's a very interesting process, and we're representing, I believe right now, over 400 people with their process through the courts. And the court that is going to handle these cases is the Court of Rome. And if someone is physically in the US, they don't have to even go to Italy to participate in the trial. Everything is handled by an attorney. And if there is a member of your club who is already residing in Italy, this process can even take place before a court in the place where the person resides in Italy. So if somebody resides abroad, it's going to be the Court of Rome who's going to handle the case. If somebody resides in Italy, this process can take place in a local court, which could mean a quicker process.
Interesting. Thank you. Is there a general limit to apply for Italian citizenship by descent?
Like I mentioned before, there are no generational limits, meaning you can go back as far as you want in terms of generations. So you can apply for citizenship through your great-grandparent or great-great-grandparent or great-great-grandparent. It doesn't matter. There is no generational limit as long as, like I said before, your Italian-born ancestor was alive in 1861. That's the only limit, but it's not a limit connected to the number of generations, rather a limit connected to your ancestor being born or being at some point at least an Italian citizen when Italy was created as a country, as a nation in 1861. And something interesting is, I believe this is kind of surprising for people, because we say a lot of times that that you are applying for citizenship through a grandparent or great-grandparent, but in reality, you're not applying for citizenship through that ancestor who was born in Italy. You're applying for citizenship through your parent who got citizenship through their own parent who got citizenship through their own parent, meaning that that Italian ancestor who was born in Italy and left Italy at some point was able to transfer citizenship onto the next generation, who transferred citizenship onto the next generation. So citizenship was passed one generation to another, from your great-grandparent to your grandparent to your parent to you. So under Italian law, citizenship is always passed from a parent to a child, from parents to children. And that's how you get citizenship. So And also it's interesting that those people who qualify for citizenship by descent, they're actually already Italian citizens since when they were born. They're just going through a process to have their Italian citizenship status recognized.
Interesting. Next question is, do you need to speak Italian to apply for Italian citizenship by descent?
The answer is no. And the reason behind that is basically what I just mentioned, which means that you were born with Italian citizenship. It's not that you are applying for Italian citizenship through your ancestor. You were born with Italian citizenship because your parent was Italian at the time of your birth. And now you're just going through a process to have your citizenship recognized, which is why you don't have to speak Italian. There is no such requirement because you're not applying for citizenship. You're just applying for recognition of your birth status. The language requirement does exist for other types of citizenships, meaning the citizenship through marriage and the citizenship through residency. So if you are married to an Italian citizen, to apply for citizenship, you have to speak Italian. By the way, the level required is B1, so lower intermediate. You have to take a test, which is a prerequisite for your application for citizenship through marriage. And the same goes for those people applying for citizenship through residency. I would assume that some members of your club may be interested, maybe those who are not of Italian descent, in applying for citizenship through residency, which can only be done after 10 years of residency in Italy, and you have to speak Italian. Unless you have Italian ancestors and you don't qualify for citizenship by descent because you don't meet the requirements, in that case, you can apply for citizenship through residency after having resided in Italy for 3 years. And you also have to speak Italian in that case as well.
And do you need, if that is the case, do those individuals who are applying through their residency, do they need to be permanently through? In the U.S., they have some interesting rules where you need to stay within the United States. You can't leave the U.S. during a certain part of the process. Is that the same?
It's kind of the same. So you have to have resided in Italy for 10 years or 3 years if you have Italian ancestry, full time. And by full time, the Italian government means at least 6 months and 1 day. Then when you start the application process, which is going to take, unfortunately, additional 2 years, up to 2 years for the application to be processed. During that time, you also have to continue residing in Italy full time, and by full time we mean at least 6 months and 1 day.
Do you what are the benefits of applying for Italian citizenship?
Evidently, if you are an Italian citizen, you are a citizen of the European Union, so you can not only reside without limitations in Italy, but also in the European Union. You can accept work offers, job offers in other European countries, and you're actually normally preferred to other candidates that don't have dual citizenship, because evidently they have to apply for a visa and you don't. So having Italian citizenship generally means easier access to employment opportunities in the European Union, other than freedom of movement, access to high quality healthcare for free. The Italian healthcare system is one of the best in the world. It was ranking third, I believe, last year. So it's one of the best health care systems in the world, and it's completely free of charge. So it's supported by taxpayers. You don't have to pay anything. Even if you never paid taxes in Italy, you don't have to pay anything to access the Italian healthcare system. Um, and also, if you get Italian citizenship, so if you go through this complex process and get Italian citizenship, it's a legacy for your children, because if you have minor children, first of all, they will be included in your application process, but even your future children, so the children that you will have in the future, they will be able to get citizenship at birth without having to go through this process.
That was, I mean, I ended up getting my citizenship same way through my mother, and ended up having citizenship. I think it was probably 17, 18, and had to go through the whole process. And I remember that there was the issue of the draft. Is that still an issue when if you're a young person and you get Italian citizenship, do you still have to consider that?
That's no longer an issue. The draft, mandatory draft, is no longer in place for anybody, regardless of your age. So even if you become an Italian citizen now, and it was a mandatory, like it was something that was mandatory when you were maybe 18, that's something that you no longer have to do because it was abolished for everybody in the early 2000s.
Another question that came up was, has the global health emergency affected applications for the Italian citizenship? What sort of flux have you seen? Has there been big issues? Obviously, the pandemic's been terrible across the board, across the world. So, yeah, curious about that.
Luckily, it has impacted the ability of applying for citizenship at the very beginning and very minimally. But right now, things are almost completely back to normal. So at the beginning, there were some delays. People were unsure about what to do. Even the people working in the Italian consulates, there was some initial backlog. But right now, and actually for quite a few months, things went back to normal. So I'm happy to report that it's possible to apply for citizenship through the Italian consulates in the U.S. I believe there are a couple of consulates that still are not releasing new appointments for people who want to file the application, but we're expecting even those two consulates to resume the ability to book appointments for citizenship very soon. And for those people who want to apply for citizenship in Italy, everything is working pretty normally in Italy, meaning if you're able to get into the country. So of course, if there are no travel restrictions from your place of residency, if you're able to get into the country, you will be able to file the application for Italian citizenship without any limitations. Actually, the pandemic has allowed the Italian consulates, for those people applying from America, to rethink the way in which they handled these appointments, these submissions of applications. Before, you had to travel to your Italian consulate to present in person your application, and there were people, in the U.S. who were living very far from the consulate. For example, if you think of people who live in the state of Washington and have to go all the way to San Francisco to apply for citizenship, it was a long drive. But now with the pandemic, all consulates, they are allowing people to mail in the application, and the in-person appointment has been replaced by a phone interview. So it's a much easier process.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that there's been advances in the technology. Hopefully it'll continue to all the other facets of the Italian bureaucracy. I'm sure it will. It'll be a slow, arduous process, but I believe it'll be beneficial for everybody for sure. Next question was, how long does it take to be recognized as an Italian citizen once that process starts?
I kind of touched that subject before. You have to be prepared for a rather long process, but still acceptable if you think that people in South America, like for example in Brazil, that has a much higher percentage of Italian Americans, there the wait time for example, for an appointment at the Italian consulate is somewhat concerning because people are waiting like 3, 4, 5 years, which is crazy just to meet with the consulate. In the US, the longest that you have to wait to meet with an Italian consulate is 24 months. So it's not that bad. You have the time to prepare your documents, and that's going to take time anyway, normally 9, 10 months to put together all the documents if you're applying through a grandparent. And like I said before, if you apply in Italy, the process is much quicker and it doesn't require really a lot of preparation. You can just gather your documents and relocate to Italy and start your citizenship process in Italy.
What happens once someone is granted Italian citizenship? You know, they come back, they say, yes, we approve your citizenship. What's the process there?
If somebody is residing in the US, the result will be that the consulate will register you with the IRE, which is the Registry of Italian Citizens Residing Abroad. You will be able to apply for a passport through the consulate. The IRE is what allows you to access the consular services. So renew your passport, apply for a new passport, register the birth certificate of your children, vote for the elections. If you are someone who applied in Italy, you will be registered as a resident of a specific municipality, even for the member of your clubs who reside in Rome. If they are, for example, in Italy on a visa and decide that they, after this webinar, that it's a good time to apply for citizenship from within Italy, they can go through the process through the municipality and they will be registered as residents of that municipality. So they will be able to apply for a passport locally in Italy. Of course, if somebody applied in Italy and wants to relocate back to the US as an Italian citizen, there is no problem. You just register as an Italian citizen with the IRE at your local Italian consulate.
There was an interesting question. I'm just going to kind of pivot for a second. Justin Fadivari had asked, I'm an American without Italian heritage. I've been living in Rome since December of 2020. I will return to the US in mid-July to apply for elective residency visa and then return in the fall. In the context of Italian citizenship, would my 10-year clock have already begun? In the 2021 would have been my first year, or would it have started in December of 2020? What documentation should I already be keeping on file?
That's an interesting question. And let me see if I can access this question. Yes, I can see his question. Now, the answer is, it depends. Most likely, he will have to start counting from when he returns to Italy with the elective residency visa, but it depends on how he is residing in Italy right now. You can send me an email with this question. By the way, we offer a completely free eligibility evaluation service where we can exchange emails with people, phone calls. It's all free of charge and with no obligation. So I'm happy to look into this further.
Let's do this. What is the website if people want to run out and schedule one of those appointments with you?
It's Italiancitizenshipassistance.com. And my email is very easy. It's Marco, M-A-R-C-O, at Italiancitizenshipassistance.com.
Great. And you can find that information also on the American Club Rome.org website, which we will have up if we don't have it all already. There was another question. I'm just going to pop onto the chat for a second. There was another one. Catherine Krizik asked a question. I am married to an Italian and have been living here for 20 years with 2 children who have dual citizenship. I have been thinking, should I become a citizen? Can you describe the procedure for that if she was to decide to become an Italian citizen as well?
Absolutely. So, of course, my advice is always to apply for citizenship through marriage rather than being in Italy as a residency permit holder. Um, the additional benefits would be that you have the right to vote and more stability, of course, um, and you would be like a citizen like any other Italian citizen. But going back to her question, the process involves the first of all, she will have to take a language test. She can contact Italian schools in her area. Only some schools are approved by the Italian government. The schools will be able to tell her whether or not they are approved by the Italian government, but most Italian schools are. The level required for the language test is B1, so lower intermediate. So it's not advanced, but not a beginner. So the difficulty is like medium. There are no classes required, so you can go straight and take the test. If you're fluent enough in Italian, normally you get the results after 3-4 months, and that's the prerequisite. So that's the first thing to do. After you've taken the test, you have to start gathering documents to support your citizenship application. The documents are very basic documents. Your birth certificate, your passport, your marriage record from the Italian municipality. So you have to have registered your marriage record. And criminal background checks from every US state that you have resided in since birth, and potentially foreign countries. So if you have resided in Japan, you have to get a criminal background check from Japan. All the documents need to be translated and legalized. And then the important information is that all the documents expire within 6 months from when they were issued. So it's important that you gather all of these documents. And I'm talking about citizenship through marriage. This doesn't apply to citizenship by descent. It's important that you gather all of these documents at the same time, simultaneously, because if you start focusing on one and you get one, it's going to expire by the time you get the second one. So all of the criminal background checks from the states where you have resided, plus the FBI, should be acquired at the same time simultaneously. When you have all the documents together, you can submit the application. There is no wait time like the applications for citizenship by descent. You can submit the application online on the website of the Ministry of Interior, and the Italian government has up to 2 years, which can be extended to 3 years to process the application. So 2 to 3 years for processing. It's unlikely, because I'm sure that would be her question. It's unlikely that it's gonna be processed in less than 2 years.
And you touched on an interesting topic that was another question. Citizenship by marriage versus citizenship by descent. What is the difference?
That's interesting because there are some people who qualify for both. So they're married to an Italian and they also have Italian ancestry, and they always ask me, which one should I go for? Now, I always say that, in my opinion, it's advisable to choose citizenship by descent over citizenship through marriage because it's a quicker process. It's also less difficult, in my opinion. For the citizenship through marriage process, you're dealing with the Ministry of Interior in Rome, which is one office that deals with citizenship applications presented from people from all over the world. And there is no way for you to communicate with them. You submit the application online and then you just wait for 2 years. And you wait for the approval or denial if you did something wrong. Citizenship by descent is more under your control because you deal with the consulate, So a local office or the Italian municipality, even better. And it's a quicker process. It can be a quicker process. It is normally a quicker process, let's put it this way. For citizenship by descent, you don't have to speak Italian. You do have to speak Italian for citizenship through marriage. And finally, from the nature of the process is radically different, even if, and I want to be clear on this, the result is the same. So the end result is the Italian passport, but the nature of the process is different because for the citizenship by descent, you're applying for a retroactive recognition of your birthright. And that's kind of why you don't have to speak Italian. For the citizenship through marriage, you're applying for naturalization. So you're petitioning to be granted the Italian citizenship. So the nature of the two processes is very different.
There was a question in the chat, Catherine had asked, how do you get the criminal background checks? And in the US, you can write your sheriff's office within your county or within your state, and they will send you back. I believe it's you send in a check and they will send that back to you. And then the FBI background check is also the same. You would say you fill out a form and you put in your information along with a check and you send it in, and that's how it's done. Can it be done on behalf of a client? Let's say a client engages your law firm services. Are you able to do it? I think you have an office in the United States. Are they able to do that for you?
Of course, we're based in Los Angeles in the US. We do need the cooperation of the person. The person needs to be a little bit involved, but we're able to take care of most of the documents procurement with regard to criminal background checks for them.
Thank you. There was, before we get into one of the other questions that were posted, there was a last question that we wanted to make sure we covered. Citizenship by residency in Italy. How does that? I think we touched on it before, but maybe we could kind of review it a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, very briefly, one can apply for citizenship through residency after having resided in Italy for 10 years, full-time. And I explained before what full-time means. However, if you are an EU citizen, it's only 4 years that you have to spend in Italy before being able to apply for citizenship through residency. If you have Italian ancestry, it's 3 years, but only if you have an Italian-born parent or grandparent. So to recap, it's 10 years for everybody, or 4 years for a subcategory EU citizens, or 3 years for another subcategory, people of Italian descent who have an Italian parent or grandparent who evidently don't qualify for citizenship by descent, because otherwise I would definitely suggest to go that route. The process is very similar, if not identical, to the process for citizenship through marriage. So you have to take the language test, you have to get all the criminal background checks, other documents, submit the application. It's processed by the same office, the Ministry of Interior, and you wait 2 to 3 years to get a response, during which you have to continue residing in Italy. The only additional documents that are required for this application are the proof of income. So you have to have some basic income in Italy, and of course, proof that you have resided in Italy for a certain period of time.
Blaine just asked the exact same question that I was just about to ask you, which was, how does Brexit affect the situation now, since, you know, the British citizens are no longer EU citizens anymore? How is that affecting? Has that started to affect, or is it still something that needs to be worked out?
That's an interesting question. I have to admit the situation is still unclear. So there's a lot of confusion, but to the best of my knowledge, if you began the application process before Brexit, the process for citizenship to residency, then the process goes forward. But if you are someone who was waiting on the 4 years, and you meet the 4 years requirement after Brexit, then at that point you cannot start the application process for citizenship to residency because you're no longer considered an EU citizen. So you have to continue waiting until you reach the 10 years mark.
I have a personal question. So I'm the director of sales and business development for it's a San Francisco startup that is an AI data analytics firm out of California, and it's very interesting. It works in the brand and social influencer space. And my question is, there's a lot of things that are happening now with U.S. immigration. This doesn't have to do with the Italian immigration per se, but a lot of foreigners who are applying through visas and trying to get U.S. citizenship have to submit their social media handles because the U.S. government is looking at social media to do part of their background investigations. And I'm curious, is Italy doing this? And if they are, what are sort of the rules around it? And how is the conversation, or how is are the rules functioning in Italy at the moment?
I happen to be familiar with the process of applying for U.S. citizenship, and in my opinion, the process of applying for Italian citizenship is a lot easier. There are a lot of less requirements, a lot less investigation that is done. They don't ask you for your social media. You actually start the process without an interview because you submit the application online, and even if when you have to present your documents in person, because that's another thing that you have to do. You submit the application online, and then you hand over your documents, and then you start waiting. It's just an appointment during which you submit your documents. There is another appointment, a final interview during which you take the oath, but it's just to take the oath. So it's not that there is some sort of actual interview with a government official that asks you questions, like personal questions that you have to answer in order to get citizenship through residency or through marriage. The law is very clear. It says that you can become an Italian citizen if you have no criminal records. So if you have no priors, and even if you do have some, they don't necessarily preclude your ability to apply for citizenship, because only certain types of convictions will preclude your ability to apply for citizenship by residency and through marriage. And that's the only thing that they really check. If you know the language and you take a language test, so it's not a conversation with them. You take the language test, and the language test will prove that you know the language. In the absence of criminal history, that's it. And this is regarding citizenship by marriage and through residency. For citizenship by descent, there is not even any of all of that. It's just an appointment to prove that the citizenship was passed from one generation to another, and that you have the documents to prove all of that. But there is no interview like where they check, if you know Italian or the Italian culture or language. None of that.
So I'm going to shift gears for a second before I jump back into the chat box. I know there's a couple of questions that are waiting. I wanted to just kind of throw out a poll really quick. Is anybody planning on buying a house in Italy this year? We're just curious to see if anybody is. Now, do you need a U.S. citizenship, or do you need Italian citizenship to purchase a house in Italy. There's so much conversation about these €1 houses, and a lot of Americans are really excited about being able to, go in and get an inexpensive house in Italy, to be able to have a vacation home or even just to work abroad, as a virtual worker, because especially now with the advancements of technology with Zoom and everything else and virtual working because of the pandemic, a lot of people are going to be interested to do this. Do you need a US citizenship or an Italian citizenship as a US citizen, or can they just purchase it and stay for as long as they want?
The answer is kind of in between. So you absolutely don't need Italian citizenship to be able to purchase properties in Italy. So you can purchase properties in Italy as an American citizen. But if you purchase properties in Italy, it doesn't mean that you're able automatically to stay in the country, to enjoy your property. So you can only stay as a tourist for 90 days every 6 months if you're not an Italian citizen. So you can go live in your property and stay for 3 months at a time. Or if you want to stay longer, if you can apply for Italian citizenship, or you have to apply for a visa.
Got it. Let me throw out a question that Alessandro Antibo. Hey, Alessandro, good to see you. Question is, a US citizen who has been a resident in Italy for nearly 30 years. She was married to a German for 23 years and was widowed in 2019. She receives a widow's pension from INPS, INPS. Can she apply for Italian citizenship? No dissent in this case.
Well, if this person is still residing in Italy, of course, this person can apply for citizenship through residency. I believe the part what it says that she was married to a German is not really relevant in this case. It could be relevant for a potential application for maybe German citizenship. I don't know. For example, in Italy, you can't apply for citizenship if your if your Italian spouse is deceased, at least if you got married after 1983. There are some exceptions for people married before 1983. But anyway, this person could look into potentially applying for German citizenship through marriage. I don't know the requirements personally, but it's definitely a possibility to apply for citizenship through residency.
So I just added an additional poll asking who would be applying for Italian citizenship in 2021, if anybody who's on here is currently looking to do so. So I guess one of the things that has come up is multiple ways. It's fairly easy from the most part to reach out to you and be able to apply for citizenship in a various number of ways. Again, if you could tell me what is the website and what is your email address so that people can reach out to you.
Our website is italiancitizenshipassistance.com. My email is marco@italiancitizenshipassistance.com. And we also have a very, very interesting podcast on YouTube. It's pretty popular among the community. It's hosted by myself and an Italian American living in Italy. He's also very famous among the community. He also has his own YouTube channel where he speaks about life in Italy and enjoying life in Italy as a dual citizen.
Tell us a little bit more. What are the podcasts about?
So the podcast with Rafael Di Furia and myself, it's about the process of applying for Italian citizenship. So there are several episodes where we talk about all of the different topics regarding Italian citizenship, by descent, by marriage, their residency, special circumstances, peculiar cases, and a lot more. we also have a sister podcast about Italian real estate. So where we talk about purchasing properties in Italy. Um, and Rafael, who is in the podcast with me, he also has his own YouTube channel where he talks about life in Italy as a dual citizen. And both the podcast and his channel are very popular among the Italian American community. They can easily be found on YouTube, both.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we get that information up on our website so that you can, anybody who is looking to find out, to see that webinar and to see those podcasts, you can do so. We're also going to do the same thing on our side. We're going to post everything up. We're going to make sure you got a lot of visibility from it. And yeah, we're so glad that you were able to jump on today. You've got a very interesting practice. We're so happy that you're able to do this service for Americans that are interested to get citizenship in Italy. I know that you've got a whole bunch of other caseloads that you work with within your practice. So we invite everybody to take a look. We also want to remind everybody, we've got some really, really cool events that are coming up. We've got the spring summer aperitivo with the Circolo Ministero degli Affari Esteri, which is the foreign ministry country club, which is going to be really, really fabulous. That's going to be on June 3rd. We also have only 30 limited seats. We also have July 4th. If anybody is around for the 3rd of July, which is going to be on a Saturday, it's going to be at the Acquedotto Romano Polo Club. Marco Elser, one of our longtime board members, is going to be hosting that, and that is going to be absolutely the who's who of American Italian society. That's going to be a wonderful event. I've had the pleasure of being able to host that a few times with Marco as well, and with the American Club. And please reach out to Blaine Brown if you have any questions, and reach out to the website and sign up for the newsletter so you can get information as it comes together. That's going to be www.americanclubrome.org. Again, americanclubrome.org. Thank you again, Marco. I appreciate everything, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.